All right, and Fairway Bear will close us out this week. What are some reasonable expectations for the next 3 seasons in football? Wins and bowl appearances.
I'm just going to go straight bowl appearances. I think 3 is a reasonable expectation. I would say an average over the next 3 years of
20-plus wins overall. I mean, at least.
8 wins a year. So 24 would be the number if you win 8 a year. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to have a non-bowling season in the next 3 years. You have a young quarterback, and you've got, a good defense to build off of. I mean, if you're still rebuilding an O-line in the next 3 years, then I'm probably dead. I've probably jumped off a mountain and just said, screw this, because I'm tired of this O-line.
Yeah, and also you have to remember the schedule only turns once. So 2021, the schedule is really good. 2023, the schedule is also going to be really good. You only have the really tough road slate next season. So you should have 2 years where you have a great chance at potentially winning, 9 or 10 games with 1 year in there where you just need to make a bowl.
What are the reasonable expectations for the next 3 seasons in football draft picks?
That's such a tough one. I feel like I'd probably say double digits would be a good place to start.
Yeah, I would hope so, because, that's like 3 a year. So if you have 6 or so, 5 or 6 next year, I know everybody's got an extra year, but like Tyquan Thornton's not going to come back for another 2 years, in my opinion. Treston Ebner's not. RJ Sneed's not. Raleigh Tejada's not. Kalen Barnes is not. Siaki Ika won't. All these guys are going to be gone in the next 1 to 2 years. So that, to me, that's just like 6 guys I named. Now, not all of them are going to stick, but I think most of who I just named will get a shot. And that's not even mentioning the Garmin Randolphs, the Ben Simms,
TJ Franklin.
So
Hall.
Bare minimum 10 in the next 3 seasons.
Connor Galvin.
I feel like bare minimum you should have 10 guys drafted in the next 3 seasons.
I agree.
Recruiting rankings, you can handle that one.
Yeah, this one, reasonable expectations, next 3 seasons, I would say, I guess average-wise, they need to be in the top 4. That's really the biggest thing. They need to be in the top 4. That's a reasonable expectation for their average over the next 3 years to be 4th in the conference. Now, if you have one season where you finish 7th, it's really hard to get back up to 4th because you're not going to be able to be in the top 2. Texas and Oklahoma will always be in the top 2. But I do think that you could get up to 3. You could slide as low as 5, but you need to be in that range. Of course, a lot goes into that. If one team takes 28 players 1 year, it might be a little bit harder to get to that number. But as far as average recruiting rank, they need to be in that 3 to 5 range.
Yeah, that puts you with Iowa State and
TCU, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, and the other schools, if you're hanging around with them, then you're not doing well. If you're hanging around with the Kansas schools, it's not going well. Or Tech, just whatever there. West Virginia, they don't really recruit all that highly. So, it wouldn't be a bad thing necessarily to be next to them or close by them, but it's also dependent on what kind of class Neil Brown's putting together, because I respect him, so I know he can recruit. The other 3 are just like, whatever. It doesn't look good if you're sitting next to them in the recruiting rankings. And Fairway Bear, I expect us to hover around 5-7 to 8-4 and make. As far as their predictions, I expect us to hover around 5-7 to 8-4 and make 2 bowl games. We can get a couple wins against TCU and Texas. I'd be happy. I would think this year has the most potential given how good our defense will be, but offense obviously has a long way to go. The 2022 season could be rocky because of how many key defensive players we'll lose. Could be, but man, that's so far away. I got to worry about 2021 first. I'm not worried about 2022 yet. But, in theory, that could potentially be a thinner defense.
One thing I would say, though, to combat that is, Tejada, Bernard,
I got to stop worrying so much, man.
Right, but, you return Gabe Hall, TJ Franklin, Siaki Ika. You return your whole defensive line. Dylan Doyle, Abram Smith will fill in for Terrell Bernard a whole year from now, so he'll be even better. You're seeing depth at the star position. You're seeing depth at cornerback. If Kalen Barnes stays another year, you're feeling pretty good there. Morgan and Woods will both be back unless they just have crazy year. I mean, you're not losing. I mean, you're losing good players, don't get me wrong, but you're also returning a lot of veterans. You're returning seniors, guys who have played a ton of games. I think the bigger thing with 2022 is the fact that you have to go to Oklahoma and Texas during this season, which is obviously a lot tougher at Iowa State as well. We'll see if Matt Campbell comes back after what should be probably his best team ever this next season. Yeah, I mean, it could be rocky, but I also think there are positives as well. And you also have a more veteran quarterback, which could make the offense better in year 2 under Grimes.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, Lincoln Riley might not even be at OU in 2022 for all we know, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I guess that way early look ahead, then, yeah, that defense could still, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just expect Dave Aranda's teams are going to always have good defenses. So I'm not really worried about, like, drop-off or filling spots or, I mean, plus it's a transfer market nowadays. So,
and these are finally going to be his players. You got to remember, Bernard, Petrie aren't guys that necessarily he recruited to be a part of this scheme. So I think that's also a big factor. He's going to have the specific guys he wants to play those positions too.
Yeah, and he'll be 3 years on the job at that point. Yeah. So, all right, that'll do it for us this week. I do appreciate all of you that were part of the mailbag this week. Fairway Bear there closing us on out with some good questions, having us look into the future a little bit. Appreciate those, and hadn't really thought about like kind of the accolades over the next 3 years, so that was interesting to think about that for a second. Also, thank you to Jeremy and Brown Bear and Laugh and Grin and Doc Crow. And glad we could pick up those questions as well from last week. And, who knows if next week could possibly be as busy as this one was or the last few days have been. But welcome Nikki Collin to Waco and to the Baylor women's basketball program as the new head coach of the Lady Bears. And just the 5th head coach in Lady Bears history. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier or not, but